Oh, Shri Nrsimha Bhagavan ki jai. Krishna, 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 Hey. Krishna, 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 Hey. Krishna, 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 Rakshamam. Krishna, 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 Bahimam. Rama, Raghava, Rama, Raghava, Rama, Raghava, Rakshamam.
Krishna, Kesava, Krishna, Kesava, Krishna, Kesava,
Bahimam. I think you read last one, yeah? No?
No, I think I would do this page, I think.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Okay. So, prayers of the personified Vedas. When our senses are purified, they are freed from all material stages, namely Annamaya, Pranamaya, Manomaya, and Vijnanamaya. Vijnanamaya. And then become situated in the highest stage, Anandamaya, or blissful life in Krishna consciousness. The Mayavadi philosophers consider Anandamaya to be the state of being merged in the Supreme. To them, Anandamaya means that the Supersoul and the individual soul become one. But the real fact is that oneness does not mean merging into the Supreme and losing one's individual existence. Merging in the spiritual existence is the living entity's realization of qualitative oneness with the Supreme Lord in his aspects of eternity and knowledge. But the actual Anandamaya blissful stage is attained when one is engaged in devotional service. This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, Mad Bhaktim Labade Param Brahma Bhuta Anandamaya. The Anandamaya stage is complete only when there is an exchange of love between the Supreme and the subordinate living entities. Unless one comes to this Anandamaya stage, his breathing is like the breathing of bellows in a blacksmith's shop. His duration of life is like that of a tree, and is no better than the lower animals like the camels, dogs and hogs. Undoubtedly, the living entity cannot be annihilated at any point, but the lower species of life exist in a miserable condition, whereas one who is engaged in the devotional service of the Supreme Lord is situated in the pleasurable or Anandamaya status of life. The different stages described above are all in relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Although in all circumstances there exist both the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the living entities, the difference is that the Supreme Personality of Godhead always exists in the Anandamaya stage, whereas the subordinate living entities, because of their minute position as fragmental portions of the Supreme Lord, are prone to fall into other stages of life. Although in all the stages both the Supreme Lord and the living entities exist, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is always transcendental to our concept of life. Whether we are in bondage or in liberation, the whole cosmic manifestation becomes possible by the grace of the Supreme Lord. It exists by the grace of the Supreme Lord, and when annihilated, it merges into the existence of the Supreme Lord. As such, the Supreme Lord is the supreme existence, the cause of all causes. Therefore, the conclusion is that without development of Krishna consciousness, one's life is simply a waste of time.
For those who are very materialistic and cannot understand the situation of the spiritual world, the abode of Krishna, great sages have recommended the yogic process whereby one gradually rises from meditation on the abdomen, which is called Muladhara or Manipuraka meditation. Muladhara and Manipuraka are technical terms which refer to the intestines within the abdomen. Grossly materialistic persons think that economic development is of foremost importance because they are under the impression that the living entity exists only by eating. Such grossly materialistic persons forget that although we may eat as much as we like, if the food is not digested, it produces the troubles of indigestion and acidity. Therefore, eating is not in itself the cause of the vital energy of life. For digestion of eatables, we have to take shelter of another superior energy, which is mentioned in Bhagavad Gita as Vishvanara. Lord Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita that he helps the digestion in the form of Vaishvanara. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is all pervasive. Therefore, his presence as Vaishvanara is not extraordinary. Krishna is actually present everywhere. The Vaishnava, therefore, marks his body with temples of Vishnu. He first marks a tilak temple on the abdomen, then on the chest, then between the collarbone, then on the forehead, and gradually he marks the top of the head, the Brahmarandra. The 13 temples of tilaka marked on the body of a Vaishnava are known as follows. On the forehead is the temple of Lord Keshava. On the belly is the temple of Lord Narayana. On the chest is the temple of Lord Madhava. And on the throat, between the two collarbones, is the temple of Lord Govinda. On the right side of the waist is the temple of Lord Vishnu. On the right arm, the temple of Lord Madhusudana. On the right side of the collarbone, the temple of Lord Trivikrama. Similarly, on the left side of the waist is the temple of Lord Vamanadev. On the left arm, the temple of Sridhara. On the left side of the collarbone, the temple of Rishikesh. It's not, actually we put it on the shoulder, not collarbone. Why it's mentioned here collarbone, but anyway.
Close enough.
Yeah, okay, pretty close. Yeah. Anyway, collarbone ends on the shoulder,
Yeah.
so that sense it's correct. Yeah. On the upper back, the temple are called Padmanabha, and on the lower back, the temple called Damodar. On the top of the head is the temple called Vasudeva. This is the process of meditation. On the top of the head is the temple called Vasudeva. Yeah. This is the process of meditation on the Lord's situation in the different parts of the body. But for those who are not Vaishnavas, great sages recommended meditation on the bodily concept of life, meditation on the intestines, on the heart, on the throat, on the eyebrows, on the forehead, and then on the top of the head.
Some of the sages in the disciplic succession from the great saints Aruna meditate on the heart, because the supersoul stays within the heart along with the living entity. This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 15th chapter, wherein the Lord states, "I am situated in everyone's heart." For the Vaishnava, the protection of the body for the service of the Lord is a part of devotional service. But those who are gross materialists accept the body as a self. They worship the body by the yogic process of meditation on different bodily parts, such as Manipuraka, Dahara, and Hridaya, gradually rising to the Brahmarandra on the top of the head. The first class yogi has attained perfection in the practice of the yoga system, ultimately passes through the Brahmarandra to any one of the planets in either the material or spiritual worlds. How can a yogi transfer himself to another planet? Is vividly described in the second canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. In this regard, Sukadev Goswami has recommended that the beginners worship the Vyat Purusha, the gigantic universal form of the Lord. One who cannot believe that the Lord can be worshipped with equal success in the deity or archer form, or who cannot concentrate on this form, is advised to worship the universal form of the Lord. The lower part of the universe is considered the feet and legs of the Lord's universal form. The middle part of the universe is considered the navel or abdomen of the Lord. The upper planetary systems, such as Janaloka and Mahaloka, are the heart of the Lord and the topmost planetary system. Brahmaloka is considered the top of the Lord's head. There are different processes recommended by great sages according to the position of the worshipper. But the ultimate aim of all meditation and yogic processes is to go back home, back to Godhead. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita, anyone who reaches the highest planet, the abode of Krishna, or even the Vaikuntha planets, never has to come down again to this miserable material condition of life. The Vedic recommendation, therefore, is that one make the lotus feet of Vishnu the target of all one's efforts. Tad Vishnu Param Param Vishnu Loka, or the Vishnu planets, are situated above all material planets. The Vaikuntha planets are known as Sanatana Dham, and they are eternal. They are never annihilated, not even by the annihilation of this material world. The conclusion is that if a human being does not fulfill the mission of
his life by worshipping the Supreme Lord and does not go back to Godhead, it is to be understood that he has been frustrated in fulfilling the main purpose of human life. The next prayer of the personified Vedas to the Lord concerns his entering into different species of life. It is stated in Bhagavad Gita, 14th chapter, that in every species and form of life, the spiritual part and parcel of the Supreme Lord is present. The Lord himself claims in the Gita that he is the seed-giving father of all forms and species, who therefore must all be considered sons of the Lord. The entrance of the Supreme Lord into everyone's heart as Paramatma sometimes bewilders the impersonalists, who think in terms of the equality of the living entities with the Supreme Lord. They think that because the Supreme Lord enters into different bodies along with the individual soul, there is no distinction between the Lord and the individual entities. Their challenge is, why should individual souls worship the Paramatma or Supersoul? According to them, both the Supersoul and the individual soul are on the same level. They are one, without any difference between them. There is a difference, however, between the Supersoul and the individual soul, and this is explained in Bhagavad Gita, 15th chapter, wherein the Lord says that although he is situated with the living entity in the same body, he is superior. He is directing or giving intelligence to the individual soul from within. It is clearly stated in the Gita that the Lord gives intelligence to the individual soul, and that both memory and forgetfulness are due to the influence of the Supersoul. No one can act independently of the sanction of the Supersoul. Therefore, the individual soul acts according to his past karma, reminded by the Lord. The nature of the individual soul is forgetfulness, but the presence of the Lord within the heart reminds him of what he wanted to do in his past life. The intelligence of the individual soul is exhibited like fire in wood. Although fire is always fire, it is exhibited in a size proportionate to the size of the wood. Similarly, although the individual soul is qualitatively one with the Supreme Lord, he exhibits himself according to the limitations of his present body. The Supreme Lord or the Supersoul is said to be Eka Rasa. Eka means one and Rasa means mellow. The transcendental position of the Supreme Lord is that of eternity, bliss and full knowledge. His position of Eka Rasa does not change in the slightest.
In the slightest, where are we? Oh yeah, okay. When he becomes a witness and advisor to the individual soul in each individual body. The individual soul, beginning from Lord Brahma down to the ant, exhibits his spiritual potency according to his present body. The demigods are in the same category with the individual souls in the bodies of human beings or in the bodies of lower animals. Intelligent persons, therefore, do not worship different demigods, who are simply infinitesimal representatives of Krishna manifesting conditioned bodies. The individual soul can exhibit his power only in proportion to the shape and constitution of the body. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, however, can exhibit his full potencies in any shape or form without any change. The Mayavadi philosopher's thesis that God and the individual soul are one and the same cannot be accepted because the individual soul has to develop his power according to the development of different types of bodies. The individual soul in the body of a baby cannot show the full power of a grown man, but the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, even when lying on the lap of his mother as a baby, could exhibit his full power by killing Putana and other demons who tried to attack him. Thus, the spiritual potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is said to be ekarasa, or without change. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, therefore, is the only worshipable object, and this is perfectly known to persons who are uncontaminated by the force of material nature. In other words, only the liberated souls can worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Less intelligent Mayavadis take to the worship of demigods, thinking that the demigods and the Supreme Personality of Godhead are on the same level. The personified Vedas continued to offer their obeisances. Dear Lord, they prayed. After many, many births, those who have actually become wise take to the worship of your lotus feet in complete knowledge. This is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita, wherein the Lord says that after many births, a great soul or Mahatma surrenders unto the Lord. Knowing well that Vasudeva Krishna is the cause of all causes, the Vedas continued. As already explained, since the mind, intelligence and senses has been given to us by God, when these instruments are actually purified, there is no alternative than to engage them all in the devotional service of the Lord. A living entity's entrapment in
different species of life is due to the misapplication of his mind, intelligence and senses in material activities. Various kinds of bodies are awarded as a result of a living entity's actions, and they are created by the material nature according to the living entity's desire. Because the living entity desires and deserves a particular kind of body, it is given to him by the material nature under the order of the Supreme Lord. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd canto, it is explained that under the control of superior authority, a living entity is put within the semen of a male and injected into the womb of a particular female in order to develop a particular type of body. A living entity utilizes his senses, intelligence, mind, and so on in a specific way of his own choosing, and thus develops a particular type of body within which he becomes encaged. Not engaged, but encaged. In this way, the living entity becomes situated in different species of life, either in a demigod, human, or animal body, according to different situations and circumstances. It is explained in the Vedic literatures that the living entities entrapped in different species of life are part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. The Mayavadi philosophers mistake the living entity for a Paramatma, who is actually sitting within the living entity as a friend. Because the Paramatma, the localized aspect of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and the individual living entity are both within the body, a misunderstanding sometimes takes place that there is no difference between the two. But there is a definite difference between the individual soul and the supersoul, and it is explained in the Varaha Purana as follows. The Supreme Lord has two kinds of parts and parcels. The living entity is called Vibhinnamsha, and the Paramatma, or the plenary expansion of the Supreme Lord, is called Swamsha. The Swamsha plenary expansion of the Supreme Personality is as powerful as the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself. There is not even the slightest difference between the potency of the Supreme Person and that of his plenary expansion as Paramatma. But the Vibhinnamsha parts and parcels possess only a minute portion of the potencies of the Lord. The Narayana Pancharatra states that the living entities who are the marginal potency of the Supreme Lord are undoubtedly of the same quality of spiritual existence as Lord himself, but they are prone to be tinged with the material qualities. Because the minute living entity is prone to be subjected to the influence of material qualities, How we're doing?
I've got a minute and a half.
Can you finish the
Yeah,
page?
yeah, yeah.
Oh, you
With this page.
yeah. Are you doing speed reading?
So the influence of material qualities, he is called Jiva. Sometimes the Supreme Personality of Godhead is known as Shiva, the all-auspicious. So the difference between Shiva and Jiva is that the all-auspicious personality of Godhead is never affected by the material qualities, whereas the minute portions of the Supreme Personality of Godhead are prone to be affected by the qualities of material nature. The supersoul within the body of a particular living entity, although a plenary portion of the Lord, is worshipable by the individual living entity. Great sages have therefore concluded that the process of meditation is designed so that the individual living entity may concentrate his attention on the lotus feet of the supersoul, form of Vishnu. That is the real form of samadhi. The living entity cannot become liberated from material entanglement by his own effort. He must therefore take to devotional service of the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord, or the supersoul within himself. Sridhar Swami, the great commentator on Srimad Bhagavatam, has composed a nice verse in this regard, the purport of which is as follows. My dear Lord, I am eternally a part of you, but I have been entrapped by the material potencies, which are also an emanation from you. As the cause of all causes, you have entered my body as a supersoul, and I have the prerogative to enjoy the supreme blissful life of knowledge along with you. Therefore, my dear Lord, please order me to render your loving service, so that I can again be brought to my original position of transcendental bliss. Great personalities understand that a living entity is entangled in this material world, cannot be freed by his own efforts. With firm faith and devotion, such great personalities engage themselves in rendering transcendental loving service to the Lord. That is the verdict of the personified Vedas. The personified Vedas continued, Dear Lord, it is very difficult to achieve perfect knowledge of the absolute truth. Your Lordship is so kind to the fallen souls that you appear in different incarnations and execute different activities. You appear even as the historical personality of this material world, and your pastimes are very nicely described in the Vedic literatures. Such pastimes are as attractive as the ocean of transcendental bliss. People in general have a natural inclination to read narrations in which ordinary jivas are glorified, but when they become attracted by Vedic literatures which delineate your eternal pastimes, they actually dip into the ocean of transcendental bliss. Krishna Bhakti, Hare Krishna.
Yeah. Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Thank you. Short Panchatattva darshan. Hare Krishna. We thank you all for joining, and we wish you a sweet Krishna conscious evening and sweet Krishna conscious dreams. Hare Krishna.